So what is lag? Because if it's holding the wrist angle, which many of us have been led to believe, that might be holding you back. As you've just seen with me then, I've just topped 2 shots thinking about lag. So that was a preset drill, focusing on holding the wrist angle, and it threw so much noise into the swing that I topped those 2 shots. Surely the purpose of a golf swing is to play a golf shot. So the swinging action has to create an effective hit, and lag is just a part of an efficient sequence. Sequence being the operative word. Segmental sequencing. So essentially it's dissociating the segments of the body, but maybe we don't recognise that. For one segment to transfer momentum through to the next, they've got to be moving at different times. But if they're moving together, there is no real momentum being transferred. It's just a segment moving in space. And that generally is a lot of golf swings that we see. By holding our attention in this particular place, focusing on lag, can actually create that much noise with the rest of the swing. We don't recognise how we're moving because our attention is essentially off the ball or off the shot, that we actually don't get the result anyhow. We don't get a strike, we don't get a very good golf shot. Think about other natural actions that you make. Hitting, throwing, kicking, primitive actions that all require lag. We never think about lag when we're executing those actions. It's a term that's been applied to a movement, and all it's serving to do in the context of golf is shift our attention onto certain parts of the body, most notably the wrists, when actually what the wrists are doing is really just reacting to everything else. We may not be the world's best thrower of a ball or kicker of a ball, but we can do it pretty proficiently generally, and we don't think about it. But we are creating a sequence. Throwing a ball requires a shift in momentum. We're setting up the conditions ready to sequence. We're not trying to hold lag to get more release. We're not thinking of any of those things. We're literally thinking about where we're going, and the sequence happens. Our attention in golf traditionally has been placed in certain places. You've probably checked the backswing, you've probably thought about wrist cock, you've probably thought about winding up, and on the way down you've probably thought about shifting or bumping, you've probably thought about rotating, you've probably thought about holding lag. But actually this holding lag is just a result of this club head reacting to the body. So how we get maximum lag in the golf swing is the same as how we get it with every other movement. But let's just strip this back a little bit. Let's just start to recognise how we can move, and can we dissociate? What movement is available? First of all, stand in a comfortable posture and just rotate the hips. So that is rotating the hips in isolation. What I want you to recognise while you're doing that is, are the shoulders moving? Okay, can you do it without moving the shoulders? Okay, so we're isolating the hips and we're dissociating the hips. That's okay, but that's just moving the pelvis in space. What about now if we try to move the pelvis with the feet? So now I'm going to use the feet to twist the hips. But what I want you to do is keep the shoulders quiet. They're still. So can we actually dissociate? We're not looking for maximum movement, by the way. We don't want to be putting a lot of crunch through the spine. We're not doing that. All we're looking for is, can I recognise to any degree how I can move my pelvis from the ground? We're not focusing our attention in a certain place to create lag, because lag doesn't really exist. It's just a term that's been applied to a characteristic of a movement that really is just somebody's belief of how a club should be swung. So how do we tap into our maximum lag, if you like, through the system? What's actually lagging is everything. If I'm moving my pelvis from the feet are moving to move the pelvis, and now I can let the rib cage go. So now I'm creating a sequence from the ground. Hiking the hips, so essentially walking, letting one hip drop, one hip hike. So this pelvis is tilting this way now, or rotating in this plane, the frontal plane. We can now start to speed this action up by using the feet. So you can use balance pads for this exercise. You'll often see them in our videos, so we can explore the movement with the feet and how we can utilise that to optimise the movement of the pelvis. I can really start to sense myself using the ground to move the pelvis. To maximise lag in the golf swing, we don't need to maximise our ranges. We're maximising the efficiency of the sequence. So this is very different, how we time the golf swing. That's why not always the biggest people with the most, what you perceive as power, okay, and even the people who've got the biggest ranges of movement, so you can get very, very flexible people that can't generate a lot of speed. So it's actually tapping into this stretch reflex and how we time it. Again, we do this without thinking, so we're going to come back to that at the end. We're going to go right back to the beginning. But for this moment, we're just going to focus on the torso now. So rotating the rib cage without the pelvis moving. Once we've looked at the rotation, we can start to look at the side bend. So side bend of the torso is thoracic flexion. So now, can we actually flex with the thoracic? Not driving it with the shoulders, just allowing the arms to react. Most people in a golf swing tap into this kind of movement by moving the pelvis. So we're moving other segments, which then restrict the flow of the sequence. Ultimately, just letting the body move freely, but recognising all these parts. Now, we don't have to think like that when we're swinging, it naturally happens. If we were to pick a ball up and just throw it into the ground, what you're going to start to see is all these components emerge naturally. So throwing the ball down is more representative of a golf swing as opposed to throwing the ball forward. If we look at the pressure plate, notice as I go to throw, look at the pressure shift. The pressure's already shifting from right to left before I've commenced the downswing. In fact, my hand's still going this way as I'm starting to move to the left. And this is still lagging behind the whole system. Then the hips go, then the torso, then the arm. But look at the freedom of movement. This arm does not just stay flexed in position with the wrist held, or this tension would actually restrict the flow of this sequence. And now, as I want to generate that speed, the arm extends. And it extends at the right time to transfer all that speed through to the wrist and through to the ball. So we're getting maximum speed because we've got maximum lag throughout the system. But that's just a product of the body moving freely. It's actually a product of me just focusing on throwing the ball at the ground. So by just throwing the ball at the ground, I can start to get a sense of what this maximum lag feels like. So taking the club, just with my right hand, trail hand, what's it feel like to actually throw this golf club down? And ultimately there, we're starting to experience a similar motion to the throwing action. And these are things we can associate with. These are things we can introduce very easily into the swing. So the timing, and I'd say timing, recognising the timing is more important. So recognising when this happens. Just like throwing the ball, notice when the extension of the arm happens. It's here, it's much, much later. Most people in a golf swing are trying to keep the wrists firm to hold lag, but extend the arm. Because they're probably not aware that actually, when you let this arm just react, it flexes. As you go this way, this thing, i.e. the arm, will start to just react to the body, and the body's trying to take inertia off the system, so it's going to bring the hand closer to the centre of rotation, which allows you to rotate faster. So by the time we're transferring this momentum and speeding the rib cage up, this can now extend, and the body's always creating mechanical advantages in whatever movements it's making. It's always compensating, but it's doing it with the utmost efficiency. So when you let your body move freely, you're ultimately tapping in to these efficient mechanics, i.e. maximum lag. So allowing freedom with the arms. What does that actually feel like? We've got a sense of it with the throw, but are we actually able to allow our arms just to swing freely? Can we actually just rotate the body and let the arms react? Letting the elbows flex and extend. I'm not thinking about when I flex and extend the arms now. If I was to think about my elbows and think about when they're extending, this motion would be severely affected. But if I just let the arms react to the body, essentially this is now a momentum transfer from the body through to the arms, and that's what's extending the arms. They flex and then they extend. And that's happening as a result of me turning. So I'm letting the arms react to the momentum. And that's what we need to do in a golf swing. It's what we did when we threw the ball at the ground. It's what we did when we imagined throwing the ball at the ground with the club in the hand. And then putting both hands on the club and feeling that timing, that sense of when the club head goes. And you're tapping into the ground reaction forces that you need for this movement. You're tapping into this tensioning through the body that you'll recognise, which is ultimately allowing freedom of movement. You're tapping in to the swing weight. We're using the swing weight. It is lagging behind the system. That's because we're allowing it to lag behind the system because everything's moving freely. As we know, the golf swing is a subconscious action. It's all happening too fast. So we don't need to concern ourselves with where we are positionally in time. Otherwise, we're just going to inhibit that flow, that transfer of momentum. So guys, to get that maximum lag, we've just got to let the system react. We've got to let it react to an intention, and we've got to express ourselves freely. And when I say ourselves, I mean every single part of the body. There is no inhibition in this, no restriction. We're not limiting movement. If I try and lock the wrists out and hold lag, I'm not just holding the wrists, I'm actually creating tension through the arms, the shoulders, the rib cage. There's a reaction from the body to me doing this. And the result, as you saw right at the beginning of the session, was top shots. So now, I've got striking issues. I'm thinking of lag, I've got striking issues. It's going to potentially send me down a rabbit hole, and I'm going to start looking at how to improve my strike, how to keep lag, how to do this, how to do that. And before we know it, the whole thing is just chaos. Let me know your thoughts, drop your comments below. Try these exercises out, explore your body's movement, utilise your body's potential, and ultimately let it go just like you would if you were throwing a ball.